Welcome to Documentary First, an inside look at a first-time filmmaker's journey. I'm your host, Josh Lindsay from the Movie Proposal Podcast. Hopefully you all are listening to that. And we are with our first-time filmmaker, Christian Taylor.
Hello, Josh Lindsay. It's an awesome podcast. I'm listening, so I hope other people are too.
Oh, good. And I see behind you, looks like he's kneeling on the ground, business extraordinaire, Hunter Taylor.
Hey, everyone.
Hello. And of course, couldn't do it without him, our trusty dusty research extraordinaire, button pushing guy, Jason Rugg.
Hey there.
Hey there, Jason.
Again, you got the nice camera going again, right?
No, this is actually, I had to swap to my laptop because my camera kept zooming in and out for no reason. It was great.
Stupid camera.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Christian, I know you have some updates. We have a guest today. Let's jump right in. Hunter is been promoted. Is that right?
Well, that's not exactly right. Not in the Normandy Project sense anyway. I'm going to let Hunter give you his update himself.
Well, fortunately and unfortunately, I will have to be tendering my resignation with the girl who worked for the Normandy Project because the Navy got back to me and they drastically moved my timeline to leave for Navy OCS very soon. So I'll be heading out within the next couple weeks.
No. Days.
Sure. For OPSEC. I'm not going to tell them exactly when.
Okay.
Is that
probably should have covered this?
You have to kill us.
That whole question session and pre-podcast, that would have been good to know. But regardless, it's a very quick timeline, let's say. And Mom has been crying for 2 days straight. And that's, we're not going to dwell on that. That's going to be a hard thing personally and for Normandy Project. So, Hunter, we appreciate every single thing that you have done to help us, and your spirit will continue. Thankfully, you're in our film, and we wish you well. We know that you will do well, and we can't believe you're leaving the Army to go to the Navy.
Yeah, it is what it is. But I will say I'm very confident with the Normandy Project team. I'm confident with the Documentary First team, the team that we've put together, the different strategies that we are starting to put in place. I'm quite confident that you guys will be able to pull through without me.
Yeah, why don't you tell who's going to kind of step in and take your place?
So we actually have another soldier from the 101st, Ben Fythen, who will be stepping into my shoes. He's also helping Christian start a new company, which she believes will help her continue to make films in a much more expedient and efficient fashion. And so Ben Fythen will be kind of taking the reins from me. He's very competent, very qualified, and he's actually a bit more charismatic than I am. So that's good too.
Yeah, we'll have him on the podcast when we can, and everybody can get to know him, and we'll start that new relationship. So he's been with the company now since I guess December, and we're looking forward to getting him a little bit more integrated now that Hunter's stepping away.
Well, congratulations, Hunter. Very exciting. How does the Army feel about you going to the Navy?
Oh, I haven't asked them yet.
Oh, okay.
He's still trying to get officially released from the Army.
That's true. That's not true at all.
I'm teasing.
There's an issue with me getting my separation papers. That I'm out of the Army. That's why I have a beard.
True. All right. Well, Hunter, I just drug him in here last minute. He was in the middle of packing. So he's got to go, and he's got a lot of things to do, and we'll let you go.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm glad to have been a part of this.
All right. Bye, Hunter.
Farewell, Hunter.
Bye. All right.
You need to play, what's that song?
Taps. Taps.
Little Boy Blue and the Man in the Moon.
Yeah, Taps would feel more appropriate to my heart.
Oh, okay.
No, that's a little bit too dramatic. I'm very.
Well, let's shift gears then. We can we can move on to.
Let's talk
bigger
about
and brighter. What's going on with the film?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of stuff going on. I have a lot to update you on. I think, of course, following up on the news of last podcast that we have distribution now through Factory Film Studio. We have had a lot of things to turn in, and there's things to be decided as to when we're going to release. I did get an email today, and they're looking at right at the end of May, 1st of June, and so I can't wait to hear more about what that looks like. One of the things that we have been working on with Brad Stair, our new podcast producer, is starting a Patreon page. So if you are listening to this, we would love for you to join us once we get this launched. We hope that'll be launched in the next week or two. And it will be a Patreon that does help this podcast, but it will also help my larger projects, sort of creative endeavors in general. So we'll have more information about that. Hunter's been putting together a brand new donation package with incredible challenge coins. I don't know if I've talked about this yet, but that's in progress. We've ordered the coins, so we can't wait for that. We're still just trying to generate some sort of consistent income to be able to pay our bills and pay people. And the latest exciting news is that L'Oreal reached out to us, and they are interested in me coming to speak and maybe doing a theatrical screening there. We retained our theatrical rights, so that gives me the ability to do that.
Like the shampoo company?
Some woman named Lori? Yeah, or
Somebody said, "Do you mean Lori L?" I'm like, "No, L'Oreal, the makeup company." Yes. So it's a really interesting partnership, and it came about because I went to high school with this girl who then joined our high school Facebook group, and we got to know each other, and she saw the postings about our awards and works for L'Oreal. And she thought, I think this would be an amazing tie-in because it's a French-American company. And so we had a call about that yesterday, and they were super excited about our film and the possibilities of sharing that with their audiences. They have offices worldwide. And so it's an incredible opportunity for us. And I'm excited to see what that holds.
Never would have saw this coming.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Colgate called me the other day. They want to promote my film. Really? The toothpaste company. Okay, that's great.
Well, the thing is, what I've learned is that every big corporation usually has these little independent groups. And like at Michelin, they were called business resource groups, or BRGs. It's the same thing at L'Oreal. They have another thing that they call them like tasks groups or something like that. But what they do is try to create some sort of culture with the people in it based on what they're interested in. So you may have a car group, or you may have, whatever. But in these two companies in particular that I've been associated with, they have veterans groups. And so these veterans groups are always looking to partner with outside stuff. And so this veterans group at L'Oreal wants to bring education, awareness, and advocacy. Those are some of their pillars of their veterans group. And that focus really pairs well with our film. And it would be veterans that sponsor it. Their veterans group sponsors it, but it does extend the invitation to view the film and learn about these veterans groups and French groups, explains them to the wider L'Oreal community. So it's an exciting opportunity. I can't wait to see what happens.
Awesome. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that's the update for me. Another great thing that's been happening is we've been having first-time filmmakers reach out to us that have been helped along by our podcast and asking if they could kind of come on and share their story. So Bradley and I think that might be something really fun to do. We had Elise on a while back with Big Teeth Productions and her film, and that kind of kicked things off. So that's led us to today.
Well, we have a special guest, another first-time filmmaker, as Christian said. Why don't we go ahead and bring him on? His name is Scott Homan. Scott, welcome to Documentary First. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to share your bio here with everyone. Scott is from the North Woods of Wisconsin, in the heart of the Great Lakes. The Northern culture is fiercely do-it-yourself, and he was taught by, I like this, eccentric parents to defy cultural norms. Not the house I grew up in, but we'll leave that for another day. He created his first two documentaries at 17 in a high school film program. Very cool. He worked for Channel 7 News running camera and audio, and went to photography school in Minneapolis. during the transition from film to digital. I actually did the same thing. I had that same problem. We'll talk again about that later. He lived abroad for 7 years in Ecuador and Vietnam, where primarily focused on developing skills to run a boutique documentary production studio. And he and his two friends in Hanoi created an independent production company called Banana Island Films. Great title, great logo, by the way, that he runs to this day. So he's got 2 feature films that are in the film festival circuit, which is, I think, fantastic. Scott, again, welcome to the podcast.
I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for that. Thanks for the intro.
So Scott is also a first-time filmmaker, got introduced to the podcast. And let's start with that. How did you get introduced to documentary first? And how have you found it to be helpful for you?
I listen to podcasts a lot. And so I was on Stitcher and I just did a search for documentaries. And I probably stream like 5 to 6 hours, maybe even longer of podcasts a day while I'm working. Because I have a day job that's beyond my film job. And I thought, wow, this is perfect. This is the only thing I could find about running a new film, running through the film festivals. And it was incredibly cool to you're about 6 months or a year ahead of me in a bunch of different ways. And so I was like, wow. And every single episode I just learned a ton about how the entire market works, really. And there's so many mistakes that you've been very open about having made. And I've been making some of those same mistakes. So a few of them I got to skip and not make, thanks to documentary first.
So happy. I've always wanted to be an Indian guy, to sort of see myself as that, like, don't do what I did. Let me make it easier for you. So that makes me happy to hear.
Yeah. And I just binged it all the way through. So your journey's been incredible.
That's pretty great. Thank you very, very much for listening and for reaching out to me. I love meeting you. I saw your film this past week, as did Jason. So we're going to kind of dive in, just a little bit about, how you got into filmmaking, what your journey's been like. We're going to talk a little bit about your film, what tools you found helpful, what your film festival run has been like. So we have a whole bunch of questions for you. So I'm going to give the first one. I'm going to pitch it over to Jason. Jason, why don't you ask him, the first question?
All right. So Scott, what led you to become a first-time filmmaker? I would love to know how. Like, I know how Christian stumbled into hers. How did you become a first-time filmmaker?
Well, there's the bio kind of touched on my background, and I kind of done the other film that's in film festivals right now. I actually haven't submitted to any. I've tried, and then I paused to let this one run. But I made what I think is sort of like my prototype feature in Vietnam. It's more of like an anthology following musicians and bands that are like live musicians there, and a music venue that's on a rooftop, a tower in the middle of the city. It's a really amazing place, and a bunch of friends and artists made it. So I made that, and I got all the skills, I guess you would say, to make a film. But what I'd already been kind of prototyping out this feature, which is also about music and musicians, but in a religion. And I've been working on this idea because it's a really personal story, and I wanted to be able to tell it in a really creative way, because there's a lot of media out there already, and there's nothing quite like what I created. So just got ambitious. I actually went to go to film school when I got back to the States in 2017, and I took a couple classes for like 1 or 2 classes, and realized I'm much more of a do it and learn it kind of person. Do it first, just rush into it and learn trial by fire. So I quit and just decided to run a crowdfund campaign and build up some capital so I could go shoot. And then if I did that, I figured I would be able to just cut it over time. So that's kind of the rough intro.
That is, everybody's road to their story is different. And some people do go to film school. Some people, just like me, jump right in and think, how hard can it be? I can figure it out, or I got some friends who can help me. There are many, many stories to becoming a storyteller. And I do think our experiences kind of lead us there. And just like writers write what they know, it's easiest for us, I think, to jump in and tell what we know. or show it. So we haven't yet talked about the name of your film and what it's about. So why don't you tell us first all of that information?
The name of the film is Witness Underground, and it's about Jehovah's Witnesses. That it's about a music scene in the Jehovah's Witnesses, essentially, and a community that grew up inside the culture, and they weren't really allowed outside of that culture, and so they kind of had to do everything themselves. There's a strong community bond that they've had together, where they knew other bands and other musicians outside, but they weren't really friends with them. They had to kind of develop it themselves and just learn how to run and mix audio, and they had a lot to rebel against, and they didn't necessarily know that, I don't even think, but they created music, and it was sort of off limits to be able to do that in that culture. You can't really be in a band, you can't really pursue fame, and you can't really pursue success of any kind. Even financial success is looked down on. So they were pushing on the limits of the culture in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, so the name of your film is Witness Underground. And if you wanted to give us your log line, do you have a log line? It's always so important. If you're a first-time filmmaker, you got to work out that log line, and you got to be ready to know it right away. So when somebody says, what's your film about? The first thing that you need to give them is that log line. So tell us what your log line is.
Okay. I should have been ready for this. Witness Underground reveals artists born into the high-control Jehovah's Witness culture who attempt to strike a balance between seeking truth and artistic self-expression. They push the boundaries until they hit the bars of the cage they are in.
Excellent. Great. It's short, to the point. I love that. Jason and I both watched this over the last week. Jason, I want to start with you. Tell me what you thought of the film, and, what impact did it have on you?
It really broke my heart in a lot of different ways. Because it's, growing up Christian, it's not as constrictive as the Jehovah Witness, but there was a part of that really resonated with me, of how being a youth and trying to find your own way and being artistic in some way, and it not being really accepted by a lot of people. And that it really resonated with me, the running into the bars that they were running into. It really sucked me in, and I loved it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, Jason, because I was raised in a Christian home, and in particular in the South, where it is more legalistic and formulaic and overarching in your life. There were a lot of things that I could relate to in this film, albeit it is not as dramatic, clearly. And like you, it broke my heart. I found myself praying for these people in the film over the last couple of days, because there was such for me, a sadness there, in that after they've come out, there's a real rejection of all things spiritual, period, which I think is sad, because I think we're made as spiritual beings in a sense. And there was just a lot of hurt and pain that overshadowed anything that could have been good. But I will say the same as Jason. I did feel completely engrossed in your film. I think the production value is high. The story is compelling. I learned new things. It made me very compassionate and understanding of the people growing up in the Jehovah Witness environment. But there was also the element of that I find when I watch anything like that's on Christian Science or Scientology. That's it. All the Scientology coming out things with, I cannot stop watching those, because you cannot get your mind around the culture and how it is so controlling and pervasive. And so there was that element there, as you heard people talk. You just can't believe that, in your situation, someone is not allowed to go to his brother's funeral because he had left the faith. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. So big kudos to you. It seemed like a very personal journey for you. And I think the thing that was, I didn't understand is the connection. So how did you end up with this story yourself?
Okay. So I played music. I had a very light experience with this religion, where a lot of people, like the people in the film, had a very strict kind of standard experience. My parents, like I mentioned, were kind of out of the box kind of thinkers. They did things their own way, live to their beat of their own drum kind of thing. So I had the ability to play music, and all my heroes were Nirvana and Soundgarden, these old grunge bands from the 90s. I wanted to be a rock star, and I played in a band in high school. So I had these friends outside of the religion, which is usually off limits, whereas people in the religion didn't get to have that experience. So I was in this band, and then later I kind of left the religion, came back for family. And then I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'll find a witness band. So I got all these people to play my music. So I recorded another album, and eventually met all these other witnesses in Minneapolis, because the witness circuit, they're spread around, and people drive, and like I had friends 3-4 hours away, and we'd have parties. People drive across the whole state or from other states to just hang out for an evening or a weekend. But so I met all these other witnesses in Minneapolis and Chicago and Madison, and there's a sort of network. And so I discovered these people as a witness in the religion, and we were friends. We partied and did all kinds of stuff, and broke some small rules, but got away with it. But eventually all these people left the religion, and it was within a few years we all sort of had left the religion, but I didn't really get back in touch with them until like 8 or so years after having left. And it was for a totally unrelated project. I was working on my first 48-hour film project in Vietnam. And I reached out to Eric and Cindy, and they made the soundtrack in like 8 hours. It was amazing. And so me and my French filmmaker friend in Hanoi, we started asking Eric to make music for corporate gigs and paid gigs. And then since that relationship was sort of building in this commercial sense, in creative sense, I was like, well, what if I was able to tell my story through them? And I was like, that'd be really cool, because it sort of connects the music. For me, their story of playing music in the religion was like the only way I was able to keep going in that culture, that like I was able to have a way to express myself. And so they had this beautiful thing that they created that spanned multiple states.
So what was your journey like? If this really is a personal experience for you, what was this personal journey like for you? And then did you write this? How did the writing part for me was really challenging. Talk to me a little bit about your journey, how personal it was, how it affected you, and then how you were able to write the story.
That was really challenging. I didn't write it. I went and just did interviews. And I had a friend who also had never done anything like this help me with the interviews. So we focus really on the religion and like what the religion is like and how the rules work and how the culture works. But after the end of every interview, I would take back over, because I would let him do the interview as someone on the outside, giving an outside fresh perspective, with the goal of like the general public being the audience. So he did the main interview, and then I would come in and do a music interview about the culture of the music, and like my friend didn't even have an idea why I was doing that, and why we were spending another hour interviewing people on this other seemingly unrelated topic. But I knew that was the connection piece and the piece that made it personal. And I had like 3-hour interviews from 5 people that I let it sit. I was so exhausted from it's a very emotional journey, but it was also exhausting to shoot and capture and do the whole process. So I let it sit for like 6 months, and then I found an editor, and I was like, here's this mountain of stuff. Please sift through it and find something interesting. So she handed me like a 2.5-hour cut, and she's like, cut it down. here's something to work with, cut it down. So I spent like 2 months like finding pieces that could be deleted, which is always hard to do.
Yep. Sacrificing your babies. We've talked about that.
Yeah. I did like 7 sessions of that. It took forever.
Yeah, that's challenging. So what other challenges did you face in this? You know, there's so many. Talk to us about some of those.
Challenges, I think, like I built up the skills to do this, to do everything as like a small filmmaker, doing everything, the lighting, the sound, the cameras, running 2 cameras. I could do the whole thing by myself, but like I found out that I mean, if you lose batteries on one camera, like I'm not able to watch that, or if the color's not just right, or if you have, I would say like one of the biggest challenges is having a small crew of people that know what they're doing on set, because I spent 3 years working on this it's okay, but it's like kind of mediocre and a little bit amateur in some ways. So it only took 10 days to shoot total. I would that a challenge would be to have, one of the challenges was like doing it all myself on a super, super small budget. I have a total of $20,000 into this whole feature so far. It's like extreme micro budget kind of thing. I would also, raise more money would be awesome. It makes everything easier.
It does, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. What do you think, Jason and Josh? Do you have other questions about, the film and how he made it?
I'm just curious about the personal side of it with you or with your friends. Was there any pushback from family or the community when the film was being made or came out?
So there's some pushback. I'm expecting to be sued by this religion. They're just like Scientology. They're just as rich as Scientology, one of the top 50 companies in New York City, multi-billionaire company every year. And they litigate, like they've won 48 Supreme Court battles. Like they like to squash media and silence people, and they're just as aggressive as the Scientologists are. So there will be pushback, but in terms of like family, I kind of made the decision to just go really public with it, because once they like they take everything away immediately. It's like I have nothing else to lose, I guess, in short. So it's not like I don't hear from them. They're not happy that I'm making media about it, but I'm not happy that they have TV evangelists telling people really bad ideas that sort of like trap people that I love, So they're like extra. I mean, I don't even know how to say this. Like they shun me, so like there's silence. So if there's like no more that you can take away than like silence. Okay. And it's been silent for like 10 years. So that's the entire reason why I'm making it, is because this is not just my story. It's like 2+ million people have this story.
Mm. Yeah, that's why I think it's so powerful. And you're right. I mean, I do think it's scary to think I'm going to take this risk. I'm going to make this expose piece of work, and I could be sued, and, things could go beyond. Are you worried about that situation, and what will you do?
The only thing I've learned that I can do, I actually called the lawyer that you had on your show, because he's on your show, and that was interesting. Trevor, and he said, really, you can't stop someone from suing you, but you can just protect yourself from what that might mean. Like they can sue you, but doesn't mean they're going to win, or they even have a case or a leg to stand on. So just become an LLC. Yeah. That's about as simple as it gets.
Trevor, we're so thankful for Trevor. If you guys need an IP lawyer, Trevor Schmidt or John Scanlon, we've had both of them on. They're super helpful. What is the fallout going to be from the people in your film, do you think, with their connections, or have they already sacrificed all those by coming out?
Yeah, I think they've already sacrificed everything that you can sacrifice. I mean, like Ryan has barely had any contact with his family since 2005. And the same is true for Eric, Cindy. James luckily has family that have left as well. So he sort of got to keep all of his relationships, or a lot of them. And Chad, you lose all your friends. That's like an absolute given, but like family, some people get to have some. Okay. So I feel like Chad and James maybe have it easier than the rest, but yeah, they sort of like, especially I think probably Eric and Cindy, because they were like at the heart of the music scene, and Ryan, they were sort of like the poster children in Minneapolis for like in the Jehovah's Witness community for like what not to do, because they were like they rebranded this word called apostate. So like apostasy just means that you've left the religion of your childhood or your youth or your culture. But they teach that it means you have a mental disease that's contagious. So they think that if they talk to you, that you're going to spread this disease to them. And that's all the more on the top of mind with the pandemic going on. But that's what they teach. I don't know that everyone believes that, but they know that if they talk to these people and it comes out that they talk to these people, they could lose their relationships they have now. And that's in the immediate world. And they'll be treated how they're treating us. So, and then in the abstract, they're also taught that if they have these relationships with people that have left the religion, they will lose their ticket to heaven. But their heaven isn't the heaven that Christians have. Their heaven is living on earth forever with an immortal body, with other perfect people, perfect body, perfect land, whatever. They call it the paradise earth. So like they believe that you won't be able to live on earth forever, and it's not worth risking that. So that's like their abstract fear, is they're going to lose that.
Yeah, it's super powerful, just how you kind of educate your audience about what that is and what the cost is. And that's why Jason and I both say, it's really heartbreaking. So we applaud your bravery for doing that. And we do wish you the best about that.
Thanks.
Tell us what your journey has been like, the highs and lows. You finished it now. Tell us, I want to ask you like what that has been like. And then after that, we'll ask you what tools you've used. But start with telling us, since you finished it, tell us how long it was that you started, and then tell us when you finished it, what you've done and where you are now.
I'd like to quote Christian Taylor here. There was a dark hour of the soul. Did I get that right?
Dark night of the soul. Yes, dark night of the soul.
There's a couple of those. One was right after finishing it and just like sitting on this mountain of content, like, oh, what did I do? Like, and now I have to do this crazy task of creating this movie. So I let it sit and just kind of like wrap my head around that. That was the first one. Another one was when my editor handed me back the first cut. I was super excited and handed her back like a revision. But that process happened so many times, and I had, what it's like to rewatch your film after an edit. It's an hour and a half long. It started out being over 2 hours long.
Oh, trust me. Yeah. It is a time-consuming process, and you just wait. You've been through it, but like we are still, now that we have distribution, I had to rewatch it for the captions, like the closed captions. You have to deliver an SRT file. Like if I have to watch this one more time, I think I may kill myself.
Yeah, exactly. And what's funny, it starts out with just talking heads. And you're like, well, here's the story. Like you said, writing the film, you have to write the documentary. You have to know that this part of the story flows into that part of the story. And then this sentence is more powerful than that one. And you're rearranging all these cuts and it looks awful. And so you're just watching it, but you're really just paying attention to the story. And then the next set is like putting on B-roll or coverage footage. In your case, you had a lot of reenactment footage, which was really, really cool. I was very impressed. I had no idea you did that.
Oh, yeah. You only watched the movie last night.
Yeah, I watched it. It's very fresh, very top of mind. Yeah, I have a lot to say about it. It's really good.
We'll ask you that. You can review it for us.
Yeah, my Dark Night of the Soul was like getting like a full cut that's just looks awful, and having to rewatch it like the eighth time, and my editor's great. She's a great story editor, but the process took forever. And we were remote anyways because she lives in Atlanta, and I was in Denver, and I was living in LA when I was doing all this. So I'm in LA now. But yeah, just like how long will this go? Because we haven't even started putting photos and videos on top of this yet. And like we did this whole, basically during the pandemic, we went from raw, rough dialogue to fully finished film, which is and one of the amazing silver linings of the pandemic, that all this time to really just get head down on. I'm working full time, but there's nothing else to do, no distractions at all in life. So I was able to finish it.
So when did
that's
you?
That's probably the lowest. When I started submitting. I want to submit to Sundance and especially South by Southwest, because I feel like South by Southwest would be an amazing festival for this. But it's very much a work in progress version I submitted to them. So I'm kind of really starting my run. I submitted to like a bunch of festivals that I thought were really great or decent fits in November that all have like spring and summer and some fall screenings.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like almost one full year behind you.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's a ride. Get ready for that.
Yeah. I want to know all about your experiences with the how the festival screenings went, and like,
Yeah.
you don't have to do it during the podcast, but I'm just really curious.
We can talk about that, but I mean, it's changing. The festival experience is changing, and I think it will continue to change. I've been very thankful to have these in-person experiences that I have had, and I'm thankful I haven't gotten coronavirus, even though I've been traveling. But and I've actually been blessed, I think, by hardly anybody being there, because it's very small. You get more individual attention, and but at the same time, there are not distributors there, and there are not a lot of press there, and there's things that aren't usually at film festivals. I mean, that aren't there that usually are. So there have been pluses and minuses. But one other thing I wanted to ask you about was the tools that you found most useful. Talk to us about those, because we're a remote film company too, and we've shared in the past that we use Trello and Slack and Frame.io and Google Drive, and all those are the main tools we're using. What about you?
I've thought about Frame.io hundreds of times during this process, because
I don't
it's
know
such
how
a
you
great...
did a film without that. I don't.
Yeah, we were like having a transcript of the film, and we'd like time code it, and then it would change. So we'd have to move the blocks of text using Google Docs at the just moving pieces around. I mostly organized that myself, and we'd have a bunch of people watch, and then they'd comment, and then we'd do a new version every single edit.
Oh, I could never have done that.
That's the right reaction, Josh. Or Jason.
Oh, that's awful. That is like my biggest, if you're going to spend money on something, spend money on Frame.io, because it's just so much easier. It speeds up the whole process of communicating with collaborators. Oh man, that's a brutal process.
One of the first tools I use, which I think is a fabulous tool, is called Descript, and they auto transcribe content, and then it basically allows you to cut the film with the text itself. So you can say like, oh, this paragraph or this one sentence or this half sentence, I'm going to copy it, paste it over here, and now the film is rearranged for you. And that allowed me to really quickly prototype the story out, and I very much built the early cuts with that. But they don't quite have it built so you can like export that into Premiere and have it linked to the raw file. They've been working on that, or they've been talking working on that for like 3 years. So.
And how much is that service?
I think it's $12 a month. It's actually quite affordable. And their transcription service alone, I think, is amazing. I use it for every corporate thing I do.
Yeah, that's great. I used Rev, which works. And I think Happy Scribe is another one I used at some point. But yeah, I hadn't heard of Descript. That's really great. I
use Amara as well for SRT files and CC. Yeah. It's really cool. It's a nonprofit, so it's free. And it's a collaborative tool. So you have your film up, and then you can have people translate it. I translated our original prototype video into like 47 languages, because it's our film has like a huge global reach, where I'd imagine for you, French and English would be the primary, maybe a couple other regional languages around Europe.
Yeah.
Would be good.
How do you spell the name of that tool? Just so people know.
AMARA.org. Amara. AMARA.
Okay, that's a great tool to know about. What else? Do you have other ones?
I use Premiere, of course. Google Drive for all the shared. We had basically Ryan, the key character in the film. He's a guy who ran the music production studio. He had all the archive audio from cassette tape, CDs, and then he put this entire archive into Drive day one. So I was just like going through. That was before I even decided to make the film. He dumped this archive on me, and I was like, this is amazing. I had no idea. Yeah, it's like over 30 full albums of music that they've recorded, and I use that all. It's all soundtracked from their own music. And then another guy, James, who's a filmmaker back then, they make like student films or like amateur films, but like some shorts, and it was pretty funny stuff, usually comedy, goofing around. But like there was like 20, 30, I think it was about 30 pieces that he had done, cut from back in the day in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s.
That's pretty awesome.
Anyway.
And you were a part of that community, right? That's what you were talking about, kind of.
Yeah, I was. I moved to Minneapolis, and I knew quite a few of the people at the core of the scene. I lived with some of them, but at that point, I was like, had already done like my band thing, and everyone in my band had like moved away to different places, including me. So I sort of started selling my music gear. And they were kind of closed. They're like, who's this new guy? Like, we don't know if we can trust him. and they wouldn't really let me into the music scene, but I was like going to their shows and parties, and I was kind of like working on their other stuff. Like I went to camera school, so I was like busy in a way, like transitioning into more visual arts rather than audio at that point. But yeah, I knew them.
You talked to me about some other tools that you've been using for your festival run.
Yes. Okay, great. So I started, so with the film festival, what I really, really want to do is connect with other filmmakers like yourselves. And with the pandemic, it's basically just not happening at all. And so this is an incredible opportunity. You guys running your podcast and us being able to communicate this way. But then I also found an agent through like my neighbors that live in LA. So like everyone, like a stone's throw away, has like a script they're working on or a short film they want to make, or they're an actor. Even like all my neighbors work in media. And so I just started hanging out with them because it's a pandemic, and I got a recommendation for an agent, so got a sales agent. But even that, I was like, he sort of isn't really going to be turned on until I get a win. I get into a festival, and then you can start talking to people at the festival. So he's not really he's helpful, but not as helpful as I need. So I decided to look online for something. I found this group called Film Festival Mastery. It's a course run by the founder of Slam Dance Film Festival, John Fitzgerald, and another guy called the Kickstarter guy, Justin Giddings. He's a film director. They both direct. And it's kind of expensive, I thought. So I like held off for a couple of months, and I wish I hadn't done that because they probably would have saved me the $500 just in strategy and their smart ideas. And I would put that money towards something else. But I instead submitted to like 20 festivals that are probably not even a close fit, like long shots. And so the tools that they recommend, basically, I don't want to give away all their secrets, but the key ones are keep it on the radar of the festival programmers. So you want to one of the key pieces to running your festival is getting in touch with them. You write your cover letter, but then you might send an email that has the cover letter paraphrased, like, "Hey, this is my film. I think this is why you should watch it, and thanks for thanks for programming. I know it's a hard job," that kind of thing. And rephrase your cover letter, but also the other key things that they get you on, basically help you build is like you're slowly sort of branding a whole new business. It's maybe the worst business idea possible because you make one sale and you have one product and you're never going to do it again. And then you guys have really expanded because you have stuff to sell. But
it's what I say over and over again. And this is what filmmakers don't think about. And if I could challenge the filmmakers to think about this, it is the business part that needs to be thought about first, because you are making a product. And so you need to think about selling this product. Yes, you want to tell your story, but at the end of the day, you also want to get paid and you want to make another story, right?
Right.
And so most people think, oh, I'm going to make this movie and get discovered and then I'll be able to make more. But that's not the reality. It does happen sometimes, lightning in a bottle. But really, I would love for filmmakers to be retrained to think about the business and the sale of your film first. And that means, who is your target market? Who are you selling to? How do you make that sale? What's that process going to be like? And realize that you are starting a small business, and all of the same things apply to starting any other business. They apply to you selling your film.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Some of the key things are being really active on social media, finding the community that is engaged on the topic already, because there's our community for everything. And the way to do that is, well, there's a few ways to do that, but the classic ones, like just use Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Twitter and Facebook being primary. And then you need to put something out. So one of the key things that they recommend is having a stills photographer on set when you're filming, because you have this amazing raw content that people love to look at, and it's easy to share, and it costs so little to have a photographer for one day or a couple days on set, and it's so useful in spreading your team or spreading the message to the audience of your team. That, and then of course having a real trailer, getting a trailer editor to do an actual trailer. I cut like teasers, but they're nothing compared to a legit trailer. So one of the resources that they like to give out is a guy called Robert Hamilton at trailerden.com. So I hired him. So I haven't seen his work yet. I haven't seen his version of my trailer yet, but it's coming this week, I think.
That's
I'm pretty excited to see that.
How much is this tool?
They start at $500. That's a very affordable a group to have someone make a trailer for you.
No.
I paid
Film
more
Mastery. Than that. Film Mastery.
It's $500.
$500.
What's cool is that they have like a course laid out on how to do this. So you can go back to the course and like revisit it and come back. Like I've learned a lot from it, the 20-minute modules, and they're just really concise.
Yeah.
Well told, well taught. But then they do every week or every other week, they do a group class, and they have a Facebook group. So I'm in a group with like 140 plus directors and producers on Facebook, and we chat and connect. And I like one of them used one of the like Eric in my film, he composes for my corporate stuff. So I gave her this one other filmmaker him as a contact, and he soundtracked her film for her, and it's awesome. It sounds great. So like it's cool to like have it's sort of like the film fest things you want at a film festival. We get to have that in the group every single day if you want it, and everyone's very active. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, that is a highlight of these film festivals, is meeting other film festivals. I remember the first time when I met Tim at the Chagrin Doc Fest. I forget his last name at the moment, but I started talking to him, and after 10 minutes, I was like, I found my people. Like, right. Oh my goodness, this is like my people.
That's exactly the feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great that you found that. In my situation, I was so fortunate to have David Patterson stumble into my life. And the great thing about David is, it didn't cost me money for him. And in fact, he ended up coming on and supporting us a little bit. Not only, because of his previous festival experience, we were given waivers, but then he also helped financially a little bit. And the plus for David is now he has a producer credit on his IMDb. So there are times where you can partner with another producer that's more experienced. And truthfully, I would be open to that. I mean, I've gotten to the place now where I could be a consulting producer or any sort of producer and bring a lot to the table to help other people with their film festival run or stuff like that. So that's also another thing for filmmakers to consider, which is just bringing on somebody a little more experienced. They get the producer credit on IMDb and they're actively working,
Yeah, I think that would be very valuable. I've asked a lot of friends that are sort of somewhere in the film industry. A lot of them just have no experience at all. And I think just having a few people, even just one that has some good experience to come on your team is really wise.
Yeah.
For one of the things I learned from this podcast was your editor saying we shouldn't have this opening title screen with the director and the editor. And like, it's like 30 seconds or 45 seconds. You guys moved it to the end. I remember that being in an episode, and I got to see that last night. And as soon as I heard that on the podcast, I was like, we created one of those in the final hour. And like, I like it, but is it going to resonate with the audience? And I love the idea of just putting it at the end. Just get straight into the story immediately.
Yeah, it's so crazy because Helen Patton, she's in our film. Yes, it's General George Patton's granddaughter. She was helping me, and she said, I'm going to go send this to John, and I forget his name at the moment, but he's an LA documentary film producer. We sent it to him, and like, he's like, she needs to do this one thing and it would be great. And so I actually called him to talk to him about this. And I loved our opening so much. Like, it was beautiful and our names are there. And he's like, nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about that. Take that off because people want to get right into the story. And that's actually a relatively new storytelling device, because if you watch older documentaries or sometimes a lot of films, they still do it that way.
Right.
So removing all of that and putting it at the end is a relatively new thing, but it does make a huge difference just to jump right into the story. Our culture now has gotten accustomed to that. They don't care really who makes it. Right. They just want to hear the story, right? That's cool that you learned that. That's a neat little trick. Well, so we're getting closer to the end. I'd like to see if Josh and Jason have any more questions. And then after that, I want to get to advice that you'd like to give other filmmakers. And then I'd love for you to tell us a review of our film. So,
yeah.
Okay. Good. So Josh, Jason.
I just wanted to ask, and is there a website or somewhere we can go where they can learn more about you or your film, or where they can see the upcoming trailer or something like that?
Yes. So everything you just mentioned is available on witnessunderground.com. So the full 2 words spelled out, witnessunderground.com.
And there, I saw that you had a podcast there now. and you have a blog, and you have a Patreon page. So kudos to you.
Yeah, Patreon I started a while back, but I've definitely been inspired by The Girl Who Wore Freedom and Documentary First podcast. Like, there's so many things you're doing. I was like, you know what? I should just do all those things. Like, why not? I want to do all those things.
Yeah.
Sounds fun. And I think it's the reach that you get. Like, obviously, I would never have probably heard of your project if you didn't have the podcast. So yeah.
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
a pretty, I'm filling it out. Definitely going to do it. I love your updates. I think it's amazing to have the festival updates.
Ah, good. Glad you like that. So what about a festival update for you? Have you gotten into any festivals yet?
I have one. I can't say probably, and I probably shouldn't say what it is, but I got shortlisted from about 200 festivals or submissions down to the top 30 feature films at this one pretty important documentary. I think it's a documentary film festival, regional one in the States. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I can't wait.
That was so validating to have a festival programmer say, like, no, of all these other ones, we're keeping this one.
Yeah.
They only screen 10 a year, but
right. And It's down lower because of the pandemic. But I remember when the first festival acceptance I got was the Sugar and Doc Fest, and I bawled my eyes out. I thought we would never be accepted to a film festival, and it was very overwhelming. You're right. It was great.
I submitted to them immediately after hearing that episode.
I hope you get it.
Yeah, me too.
So Jason, what about you? You got any other questions for Scott?
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about your current project. I'm curious, do you have a next one planned? Are you going to do another one? What's your thinking right now?
I think I'm not quite ready to take on another huge project. I am thinking about it, but I don't have a story that has been driving me quite like this one has. This one was like a burning ember that I like eventually became a huge raging fire that had to happen. And I don't quite have a story in mind. How about you as a team?
Yeah. So Jason and Josh, I was going to ask you guys what's going on with, for your own updates. So can you give us anything about what's going on with the Movie Proposal podcast, or what's going on with your project, Jason?
I'll go first because it's the least interesting. We're still waiting to do our 100th episode, so we haven't done that one yet. So that's coming hopefully tomorrow.
Do you know what's going to be on that episode?
It's the film that we're talking about. It's called In and of Itself. It's Frank Oz directed a live, off-Broadway one-man show that ran for a year and a half. And so this is the film version of it, or it's not the film version. They recorded it. And so, it's as if you're getting to watch it in the audience. It's on Hulu. Highly recommend it. In and of Itself. Actually, Steve Colbert, executive producer, a lot of strange cameos in it. But yeah, I'm just laughing because
I haven't watched it yet. It's my thing I have to do tonight before we record the episode tomorrow. So I'm excited to see what it is.
And what's your something borrowed, something blue?
I have no idea.
Spoilers. I guess we're gonna have to turn in.
If I knew, I wouldn't tell you. But I'll be honest, I don't know. So,
the Movie Proposal, is that on YouTube? Do you guys video that, or is it just on podcast platforms?
It's just on podcasts. However, the first, 10, 20 of them are on YouTube. So
yeah,
if you want to go see those, they're still there. But
I guess there isn't really a reason we're not doing video on those, because we're just doing it over Zoom. So we could do it, but we just haven't.
Let's do it, Jason. Why not?
Let's another thing on my plate. Why not?
Come on.
Well, we'll talk about it tomorrow.
All right.
What about you, Jason? Can you give us an update?
Yeah, so I can't go super specific because we're still in the figuring it out phase. But we've kind of decided to just make a short animated miniseries. So we're not exactly completely lined up on what it's going to be and how it's going to be done yet. But we're going to just make something and just put it out online. Just, little episodes of a thing. So we're kind of in the writing process, kind of in the development process. We're still figuring out art and things like that. So we're very early in pre-production here, but it's going to be fun.
Awesome. Yeah. And so my project, there's really two things happening right now. One is this project that Hunter and Ben and I and a couple other people are working on to try to figure out how to make things easier for independent filmmakers to fund their films and to distribute their films. And we've been doing a lot of industry research, preparing our pitch to go before some pretty wealthy tech investors, to pitch that. I'm super excited about the idea. I think filmmakers are going to be thrilled with it, and Hunter has come up with something that is not being done anywhere that I think is really industry earth-shaking. So I'm super excited about that. And then we're still working on The Brave Dutch. It's still sort of a passion of mine, and I'm very excited about it. We've brought on a writer who I've been working with to try to divide it up into 8 or 10 miniseries, and I do think the series kind of is the way to go these days. I've mentioned that before, just from my distribution conversations and festival conversations and what people are buying and looking for, the end users. So we're looking to do The Brave Dutch as a docudrama miniseries. And so we're working on that on a regular basis. Although yesterday I had a call with an investor who used to be a military official in France who was in charge of the southern landings, just like David Chapman was in charge of the D-Day Normandy landings. And he's like, have you ever thought about doing a film about that? And I was like, oh, yes, because I've thought about it. The southern landings, nobody knows about. It's super interesting. And I'm like, do you want to fund it? Because I could do it tomorrow. I've got all the resources and a team. Let's go. So that really started me thinking about maybe I could find a way to do that story as well. So those things are kind of burning on my mind. And anyway, so give us a review of The Girl Who Wore Freedom.
Okay. I thought the interviews were all incredibly authentic and drew me in completely. I absolutely loved hearing from these people. I didn't want to turn away or look away. And like, they're just lovely people in general. I thought what Flo is doing is incredible. Yeah. What an incredible person, what an incredible project. There's only so much time left for that. And then I watched, a couple months ago, I watched the teaser or trailer you guys had done and got super emotional. And I was thinking about why that was. And the entire movie is such a roller coaster of emotions for me. I'm guessing other people have some kind of similar experience.
Yeah, it's fair. People tell me that all the time.
Not a lot of films do that. So that was very special. I think it related to I'd met my grandpa's brother was on D-Day. So I was really kept thinking about that, what he went through. I only met him one time, but
yeah. We get that a lot. I mean, it really brings up a lot of memories. And I remember writing the script. This is why I said, the script was super hard for me because I really wanted there to be an emotional journey. I didn't want it to just be 1 or 2 notes. And, if you haven't seen the film, we do start out with some curiosity, and then we go into pain and problems, and then we kind of come out of that grief and start build towards the gratitude and the joy, and then there's the tenderness, and then sort of we leave you on an uplifted note. And what's fascinating about all the screenings that we did early on was that I realized when we were at the 2-hour mark, it was too much of an emotional roller coaster. And I realized that audience members, if I was going to give a piece of advice to filmmakers, I would say, learn this right away. There is a finite amount of emotional capacity that we want to spend in an 1.5-hour period. Also, along with that, people have to go to the bathroom. They get hot or they get cold. And so when you're making a film, you really need to take the viewer into consideration. And so if you tax them too much emotionally, they stop watching. If you make it too long and they have to go to the bathroom, they may lose interest. So you really do need to think about what you're putting your audience member through and and so I just think that's a very important thing when you're writing and making a film, is to consider those things. So we try to pull it back.
One thing that helped me cut pieces of my film out was that I had my Patreon, which is more of like short bits and little pieces of, I call it a series, but it's not exactly a series. It's like little short stories. And I knew that I could always use any of those pieces I cut out on this other platform.
Yeah, that does help. We've done the same thing. That's why we've had deleted scenes and we use them on social media. So
yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, so last thing, 3 pieces of advice real quickly that you would give other filmmakers.
So I wrote a couple ideas down. One is just to go shoot your idea and just try it. Like try to go make a trailer for your film, because that'll help you crowdfund if you want it. It'll help you raise money in general. It'll help bring awareness to your project early on, and it'll also help you make sure you have an idea that is strong. You can get feedback quickly on. You won't just be filming and never have anything to show, and maybe you have been making big mistakes early or something. And then you'll learn to run sound. You learn to run cameras. You learn to edit. You should always edit your own things that you shoot. And then hopefully you'll find people to do all these things for you. And then you need to like work on projects with people and build a collaborative team that like builds your relationships.
Absolutely.
Another one is find the people online who are already engaged on this topic and connect with them early, because you want to engage with these people and talk to them and get to know who they are and what they care about, because they're going to probably be the people that will help spread your film around the world or to whatever, greater audience. Because what people might call them influencers, but just, any human being that is writing or talking about these things. And then what I've learned the hard way is to organize your film festival strategy early. Know what film festivals you want to get into, learn how that whole system works, how to participate in the fullest extent, and how to market your film for that purpose, because you're going to have to build the synopsis, write the log line, get a poster, get a trailer, and start spreading the idea around. It's better to do that way before the festival run. Better to do it before you think your film is done. Don't wait till you finish your film to start all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's why we hired a publicist, going back to Acacia and Morgan Harris. You brought on the film festival strategy, and they've helped you there. I ended up, choosing to pay a publicist, which was $2,500 a month, which is an expensive, thing. But they then help you package your product to then sell to the festivals, then to get in. And we're at a 20% festival rate still, which I think is a very healthy festival rate. But we did too tailor our film festivals to where we had a high percentage chance to get in. And what you're talking about is super important. Those are 3 awesome tips. And we really appreciate having you on. This has been super encouraging. And, thank you for sharing your journey with us.
It's been a pleasure. When you mentioned me in my email in the podcast, I was taking a walk, put on the podcast. I was like, she's reading what I wrote just the other day, right? Now it's amazing. I stopped in my tracks.
You were actually the first filmmaker that reached out to us that said, "Hey, I'm doing this. You've been really influential. I've learned a lot from you." Actually, Elise Jaffe was the first one. I get that wrong. Sorry, Elise. You were the second one, but I kind of knew Elise. Like I had a connection with Sandy Gordon, and so. But you were the total random person that wrote me.
So you kept asking for someone to write. Just write us on social media. Write us an email. So it's like, all right, I'll write you an email.
Yeah. So again, if you are a filmmaker and you want to come and talk to me about your experience and you want to share your film, write me at Christian@Normandy Stories, or, we're on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. You can reach out to us there. Also, if you have questions, we're going to start doing a mailbag issue. So you can send your questions and we'll try to cover those online. So thank you so much for coming. One last plug for donations. We really are in desperate need of donations right now. So if anybody can afford, every little bit helps. thegirlwhowarefreedom.com/donate. If you want to pick up any items from our store and help us spread the word about our film, you can do that. And then right now, there's really only one way to watch our film, and that is through the Flathead Lake International Cinema Fest. You'll be able to watch it through March 4th. And it'll cost you $5 just to watch our film. So that's a great way to see it and support that film festival. We unfortunately don't get any help from that, but at least you'll get to see the film. And
I highly recommend it. You should pay those $5 and watch it. It's incredible.
Thank you. And then I'm so excited to let everybody know the next time I come to you, I'll be in Beaufort, South Carolina. We're going to be at the Beaufort International Film Fest, and I'm hoping it's really warm there. We're nominated for the Duty and Honor category, so we're really hoping for another win. And I'll be there for a whole week. So I'll be sort of reporting from that. I'm going to take my son Jacob, since I've lost my son Hunter, to go with me. And I think we're going to try a new thing. I think we're going to try to vlog this film festival. I brought a GoPro camera yesterday. They've got this new one that's come out. So if you're looking for some really inexpensive equipment, go to GoPro.com right now. You can get the brand new camera for in a package. Like you can get just a bunch of different stuff. Normally it's super expensive, but you can get it for like $350. And I ended up getting a light and a microphone and a tripod, but we're going to try vlogging and see how that goes. So, yeah.
So
Yes,
Christian, I have one more question.
Yeah.
I wasn't abundantly clear at the front end of the episode. Is the Patreon for The Girl Who Wore Freedom, is that a thing yet? Is
Great
that
question.
live? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so we have halfway filled out our profile. There was a listener, his name is Jim. And Jim, I really appreciate this. He wrote to me, he found me through Facebook and wrote to me and said, you know what, I'm a listener. I really would love to support you in your creative endeavors. You should think about a Patreon. And that really inspired me. He actually was the one that said, you should get Josh and Jason to talk about their projects and what they're doing, because I'm interested in that too. So thank you, Jim, for your suggestions. We're halfway done with building our Patreon. We have to figure out the reward levels. So that's the last thing. So we hope in the next 2 weeks we'll get it launched.
I highly recommend Patreon. And I didn't plug my thing, but you can support Witness Underground by going to XJW Doc. That's how we originally branded it. But we have a bunch of stories on there. There's some free that are on YouTube. You can watch through Patreon or on YouTube, XJW Documentary on YouTube. But Patreon's an incredible platform, and I definitely will support you when you launch, when you're ready.
And I will actually go and support you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on, and we will love to check back in with you. We'll have you back to let us know how things go. So keep in touch with me.
And when I build mine, I'll get you on mine.
I just like the idea of you two passing the same $5 bill back and forth.
And giving you a little percentage to Patreon each time.
Maybe we should just send each other money. Maybe. All right, Josh, what have you learned?
Every time you say that, I want to start singing the VeggieTales song.
I know, it just popped into my head. Do you remember how it goes?
Yeah, but I'm not going to sing it. No. We want to end on a high note, okay? So we'll give kudos to VeggieTales. We all know what we're talking about, and we'll move on. But no, I appreciate you, Scott, being here. It's great to see how Christian's film and what she has learned has helped you, and I hope it's doing this for other filmmakers. And so, like Christian said, please write in and let us know how it's impacting everyone else out there. So, on that note, I will say thank you for listening to Documentary First, where we believe everyone has a story to tell and you can be the one to tell it.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.